Hello, everybody. This is RJ or Raphael. I've been getting a lot of questions about what happened at Watkins Glen, so I'm going to try to give a short, brief explanation and show you guys the data that I collected out of the car. And so here are the questions. First question I usually get is, "Was I okay? Am I okay?" As a matter of fact, I was pretty shaken, but okay. The EMTs, once they picked me up, they checked my pulse, and it was as high as 80 beats per minute after the incident. So nothing bad, shoulder pain, and something that within 24 hours it went away. The second question I get the most is, what happened? So well, it's pretty easy to explain. I'm going to show you some of the data. The car pretty much hydroplaned going in a straight line at around 80 miles an hour. So literally, that's what happened. The picture you're seeing on the screen, it's beautiful. It just looked before I jumped in the car. So next question: were you in your range setup? Um, I have to say, unfortunately, no. I was not on rain tires, or the car did not get dialed in for rain setup. And before I went out, there was a very hard rain, torrential rain. We had about an inch or so of water running in pit road and behind the wall. So the track was shut down, and then after it got clear by the officials, I went out for my practice session on the dry setup. The next question, a lot of people doesn't know where it happened, and they're making a lot of assumptions. So here's a track map. Here's from the source. It happened pretty much here. So coming out of turn 7, third gear, going a straight line, grab fourth, and then at some point the car hydroplaned here. So it was right before I get to the hill. Okay, so the next question I usually get was like, what was going through my mind when the car hydroplaned? So as you can see on the screen, it was pretty bad, pretty brutal. So all I can say is you don't have a lot of time to think, but usually on this one specifically, everything happened in a very slow motion because it was due to hydroplaning. At the beginning, I thought this is not gonna be bad. Yeah, I was pretty calm, but after my steering inputs were numb, they didn't have any effect on the car's rotation, the initial rotation or oversteer. I began to worry at that point. And after getting a little bit of worry, I definitely went into damage control, preparing for the contact I was about to be on with the guardrail, and thinking, how can I minimize the damage to the car? Next question I get is, was it a total loss? Well, no. Thanks God it wasn't. We were blessed with the help of other teams around us. Some of the teams were letting us just borrow their tools. Some of the teams, they just came in and offer advice. And as you can see here, one of the key players right here, he's helping us kind of straight the frame up. He had some good insight about how to fix this kind of damage. Again, this would have not been possible to fix this car, to get it back on track, without the help of all of the teams coming together and giving us a helping hand, or just offering advice. Okay, it took about over 11 hours to get the car back on the road. Went out for some testing. We found a couple things that we could work on, and we kept working. We never stopped. Um, Somehow there was a little bit of positivism going around the paddock, thinking that we were gonna make it, even though at the beginning nobody thought that we were gonna go back on track. The last question I usually get is, how did we do on the race? Well, there some testing. It went out on Saturday, just like you see it here on the picture. This is on Saturday. It went out, it completed the race from beginning to end. Just had a little bit of issues of cooling the engine. They were quickly addressed, and the car finished pretty well on the top 20 for Saturday's race. And then on Sunday, it went back out again, and it actually took sixth place in class, and I believe we end up 16 overall from over 60 cars that started on Sunday. So we're pretty happy. This is a picture that it was taken as soon as we're taking the checkered flag. Okay, so let's look at the data. What I got prepared here for you is pretty basic and simple. The green lap that you see here in the shape of Watkins Glen is just as a reference, is my fastest lap with traffic of my short stint on Saturday. As you can see, there is also an orange trace here, and that orange trace goes here. You can see that's between the turn 7 and 8. I'm gonna zoom in right here pretty much. So just to clarify a couple things, this is the exact position where the car contacted the wall and it came to a stop. I've looked at a few videos, and pretty much is almost, I believe the 300 breaking point marker is either here or here, somewhere in between those 2 points. If you look at any videos, you may be able to recognize the spot a lot easier with the breaking point marker. So let's get rid of that lap and look at the lap in question. So I'm not gonna deny or hide that as soon as I left pit road here, going to turn 2, 3, and 4, there was rivers going from the left side to the right side of the track. Debris flag was up on the flag stations. The rivers were pretty easy to see, and with just standard training, you understand that you're about to lose traction, and at some point you are bound to recover traction, just not to freak out, which it was pretty standard for me as I went through turn 2, 3, 4. But let me just show you on the data a little bit of things that I was facing. So we're gonna look at the entry of the bus stop. Okay, so here's the entry to the bus stop that I just zoom in. So back over here, if you look right here, that's the position of the car on the bus stop. So I'm entering the bus stop at an incredible speed of 83 miles an hour. Not really fast at all. Then we're gonna start seeing some deceleration right here. This is the car decelerating, that's me braking. And then as you can see, it kind of plateaus. The deceleration stops right at this point. So if I remember correctly, I enter a couple puddles, or I had to modulate the braking here and let the car settle, go through the puddles, and then brake a little bit more here on this area so I could go into the bus stop. So that's kind of the things that I was seeing. Okay, so now if you look down here, the yellow line, this is our lateral G. So I was already putting a little bit of steering input to it. So if you can see, I'm putting about 0.29 G's of lateral cornering force, and then about another 39. So then it gets a little bit even greater. As you can see here, I'm giving up a little bit of lateral force so I can gain a little bit of braking. So the sum of those two are about 76 G's, which is totally fine for that tire on damp conditions, not standing conditions, standing water conditions. So that's pretty much it. A little bit of brake modulation due to a little bit of hydroplaning. And let me zoom out of this so we can go to another example. I want to show you turn 6 right here. I'm going to show you this turn 6, or what some people call the chute. Okay. Let's zoom in on turn 6 right here. So I want you to look at this part of the lateral G. Let me take you to this. As you can see here, we're decreasing the speed going into the chute or turn 6. As we started turning in, obviously we're decelerating. We decelerated to the point of, hey, we can turn in. We're gonna see that the lateral G forces start going higher and higher through this. Remember, 0 is neutral right here. The 0 is neutral, so they start going higher and higher and higher, higher and higher, higher, and they plateau. And now at this point, I want you to look over here. What happens here? So we're decelerating here. We get to the minimum point of deceleration right here. Then we're accelerating a little bit. Remember, the chute, it's a downhill left corner. You're going downhill. So at some point here, the lateral G's are going up and up, and then all of a sudden the car goes into this quick, super quick acceleration right there. From this point to this one, super quick acceleration. And we also are losing our lateral cornering force. You see, from here to here, we can see here that there is a 14 G difference between this point to this point. So we lost lateral cornering force. Now, if we see how much the car accelerated from here to here, we also see that all of a sudden the car accelerated further 0.07 G's on the longitudinal axis. That moment right there was a sudden, complete loss of traction, hydroplane. Somewhere right about this point, the car hydroplanes, I lose lateral G's, and the car accelerates greater than what it's doing. And all of a sudden, it loses deceleration here because it regains cornering force because you're over the hydroplaning event. So those were some of the things that I'm used to dealing with in any race where you're racing with race tires and it starts raining and it gets damp, or you see a little bit of standing water at some point. So that was on 6. Now let's zoom out of this and go to the actual event. So I'm going to zoom in here. So as you can see here, I'm entering turn 7, going into the toe, coming out, and this is where I made contact with it. So let me take you through this. So let's start from here, mid corner, coming out of turn 7, the toe, keep going, keep accelerating, You can see there's a little bit of squiggly marks here. If I remember correctly, those were a little bit of understeering events. They were totally fine. I believe there was a little bit of a river from driver's left to the driver's right about here, but not a huge deal. Then it settle. If you look at this orange line here, it's pretty settled at 0.20 G's of acceleration. So I'm on the gas, the car is maintaining its acceleration pretty steady. Coming out of the corner, the G's start decreasing because I'm coming out of the corner, unwinding the steering wheel, and right about this point is where there's no steering inputs, car is neutral, also accelerating neutral, and you see this dip right here and also a speed dip here. That is where I go from third to fourth gear. A lot of people ask me, hey, did you spin the rear tires when you were doing your upshift? Well, no. As a matter of fact, let's look at how long it took me to upshift, which if you watch any of my videos, I'm pretty fast on upshifts. It took me about 2.119 seconds to do an upshift. If I was racing on dry conditions, I will kill myself if I see that. Okay, just so you know. And also it took me about 229 feet to complete the upshift between diesel, clutching in, getting the car in the next gear, and then going back into acceleration mode. Okay? So, to rest those questions a piece, I did not spin the tires on my upshift. Moving on. So, I want to zoom in on this, which is actually when everything starts hydroplaning pretty bad. So, let me just get to that power. Good. So, I'm gonna zoom in here so everybody can see that event right here a little bit better. So that right there is where I hit eye contact the wall. Let's try to take a moment here. Actually zooming too much. Let me zoom in the right amount. So from here to here, there it is. Okay, so let's take a moment and see first, how long was it, let's say, fighting or trying to save or correct the slide. Okay, so this is the point of deceleration. We're gonna look at this because if I'm decelerating, it's because I came off the gas because I'm already in correction mode. So we're gonna take it from here all the way to the point where we reach this point here, the minimum amount of deceleration. More than likely, also the graph here tell us that's where I contact the wall. So if you look here, you're gonna see that from the moment I put in the correction, there was 5 seconds of time lapse between those 2 points. Yeah, I had a little bit of time to think about what I needed to be doing, what needed to be done, and all that stuff. I'll go through it in just a sec. The distance, the total distance. Looking this up on further, at the beginning I thought it was about 450 feet, but it's actually 526 feet. Yeah, long distance. So, just remember that. So what happened? The car goes into a oversteer motion. The rear end of the car goes driver's left. I correct towards driver's left around this point, and then the car starts traveling sideways. If you look at this graph here, the right side, the GPS screen, you see the car is kind of looks like it's traveling straight, but it wasn't. I want to say the initial oversteer of the car was between anywhere between like 25 degrees rotation to somewhere like 35. I wish I had video, but I don't. I corrected the what I thought it was needed. When you go into a hydroplane event, there is too little and too much. If you correct too little and you regain traction, like once you go over the puddle, once the tires stop sliding and touch the surface again and you regain traction and you steer too little, the car is going to keep rotating. Okay? If you steer too much, if you put too much steering correction, in this case it would have been driver's left, steering wheel goes to the left. When the hydroplane event stops, the front tires regain traction and the rear tires regain traction, you go what is commonly known in the industry as the deadly hook, because the car will hook and spin. The front end will go to the left and the rear tires will swing around completely to the right side, going into a 360. So from this point to this point, I put in, if I can remember correctly, about 180 degrees of steering, just looking down the track, figuring out where I wanted the car to go, or continue travel, but the rear tires and the front tires felt numb. It was like I was in a cloud. It was still hydroplaning. At some point, I must have hit a bump or something on the track, and it caused the car just to slowly rotate a little bit more, and then I kept steering into the skid as much as I think it was needed, but there was no reaction from the chassis. Car keeps going sideways, traveling pretty much on a straight line, but gradually moving towards the guardrail on the driver's side of the track. Somewhere right about here, I go into damage control. I said, hey, nothing that I'm doing to the car steering wise is taking any effect. I need to make sure that I contact the guardrail. If I'm going to do it as slow as possible, I go both feet in, kind of like any training that you will get with me when I do private coaching, or if you take any race school. When in doubt, both feet out, and when you spin, you go both feet in. That's exactly what I did at this point. The car keeps decelerating very gradually, very slowly. But from a driver's standpoint, I felt nothing. I didn't feel the tires gaining a little bit more grip or anything. Just the car kept traveling. It gets to a point somewhere, let me move this graph a little bit, somewhere around this point where I decided as a last effort to try to spin the car. Since my rear end is rotating to the left, my front tires are pointing to the left, I decided to come off the brakes to try to get the car to spin around and complete a 360 degrees in the middle of the track, or maybe driver's right of the track. But when I made that call, it was a little bit too late. The front tires of the car hit the wet grass, saturated with water, gets kind of muddy in there, and the car just kept traveling at the same rotation. From this point to this point, pretty much nothing happens. I prepare to meet the guardrail, release the steering wheel at this point, and I contact the guardrail right about there. After this point, let me zoom in. From this point, the front left corner of the car hit the guardrail, then the front right a little bit more. It kind of like dragged, like it rubbed against the guardrail. Then it went into a 360, and somewhere at this point right here, I hit the brakes, and then the car comes to a resting stop right about here. Okay, so that's pretty much what happened. yep, it took about 5 seconds to think about everything that I could have done, and I threw the book at it. You know, just don't panic. You're hydroplaning. Wait for it. Wait for it. Car rotates a little bit more. Steer more into it. It's not working. Boat fitting. Not working either. I was hoping to when I went to boat fit in, I was hoping to maintain. If you look at my arrow on the screen, I was hoping to maintain this slide with boat fit in. That's what I'm hoping, but it didn't do it. Then last effort, come out of the brakes, try to spin that car somewhere here in this area. That didn't work. That was probably a little bit too late. So learn from my mistakes. Biggest lesson is don't play with water. Go on rain tires. You know, be prepared for water. Be prepared for the rain. This event taught me that doesn't matter how much training you do on skid recovery, hydroplaning, and I hydroplane on Porsches big time. One time in Mexico, I remember I hydroplane and just training kick in, and you know it was totally normal, not a big deal, but it was a totally different tire for sure. It was more of a semi-rain tire, not a semi-slick like the one that I was driving. We live and we learn. I'm pretty blessed that the team is working with me to get the car fixed. They're letting me be part of the recovery of the car, and can't wait to get the car back to 100% as I found it, and maybe get to drive it again one more time and see what the car does at 100%. Pretty blessed with that. But as somebody very wise to me told me once, hey, you know, even the great Ayrton Senna messed up a car too at some point, and even monkeys fall from trees. So I'd remember that, and I got this for you guys. Yep, it's a monkey falling from a tree. Anyways, thank you for putting up. Thank you for listening to me. If you got any questions, PM me directly. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I hope you know, this puts abreast a few of the questions that I've been getting for the past week or so. Thank you, and you guys have a good day.